Hey guys, Triptych here. I have a bit of an odd one for you today. So this is a video I had recorded several months ago, but the audio was corrupted, and I thought I would never be able to get it back. But since I've been studying my setup lately, I found I actually could get it back. I could get back the game audio, but I couldn't get back my voice because it was actually really bad. I think I have two cables behind my computer that are touching each other and they get feedback. It sounds choppy and awful. Anyway, so I can now show you guys this game as I recorded it back then, and I'm just going to redo my voice for it and explain what's going on. So sometimes it's not going to make sense and it'll be great. It was a very good game though, so I think it'll be entertaining. So this is on Circling Vultures, and this is 3.9b of Triptych's mod. And when I did it, this was when I was experimenting with the Federation having chassis level upgrades reduce the build time of their ships. I've actually turned away from this in later versions, so this is not how the game plays anymore, but it was a good test. People said it was overpowered. So this is sort of a build where we already knew that the Federation were overpowered. And so our teams who went random in alliances, I believe. On the top left, we have Tiger, who went Takroja Klingon. We have Warp Core, who is Assimilate Borg. And on the bottom left, we had Mighty Master, who went Breen Dominion. So they had a pretty balanced team here. On the right-hand side, we had Drazon, who got Dominion. Drazon has randomed and gotten Dominion like 5 times now. It happens a lot. But he went Pure Tech this game. And his allies, Nessie, is Risner Federation, and then their last one is Drone 391, who is also Risner Feds. So the right-hand team is a little bit stacked with the Federation start. Basically, the way it worked was the ships would start out building slowly, and then every chassis level you got would increase the build speed of your ships, obviously. But I ended up tuning the numbers too low for Monsoons and Intrepids, so Monsoons in particular built incredibly fast in the late game, and it was very easy to spam them. And after we talked about it a lot, we decided it was okay to just give them a standard build speed. And actually, I kept on increasing the build cost of Monsoons and Intrepids. So in newer versions of Triptych's mod, they're really not overpowered, especially since the Federation have to get Starfleet Engineering and Chassis Level 1 in order to get to them. They're really rough early game. I've even considered like lowering the cost of that or something. We'll see. We'll see based on feedback. Because the Federation are, by their very nature, they have more expensive technology. It takes them longer to build at the top of their tech tree than other races. But when they reach the end of their tech tree, they have some of the most powerful ships. Not powerful by individual stats, just powerful in the way they play. Because like Phalanx and Sovereigns and such, their ship models are so small, they stack together really well. And their defense values are high, which makes them really good in fleet engagements. So on the left, so as you can see, this map has 3 sort of channels. There's the top and the bottom players both have expansions that go towards each other. And then the middle sort of has, same, they have an expansion that feels very exposed. And then they have a single dilithium moon right in the middle of the map. So we saw, because it was very new to this version, we saw Warp Core getting his adaptation level first. And I remember thinking, oh no, what are you doing? You're not going to have ships. But he is going for a build that Mighty actually came up with, where you go straight for logistical matrix. In Triptych's mod, the new Borg setup, you have the option to upgrade your miners to perfect logistics. It's an upgrade. You select the miner, you activate it, and then it costs a little bit of resources, and then that miner will produce a small amount of resources every second in addition to its mining. And the way you get that is you get the logistical upgrade on the starbase, and then that adds 4 slots. So you can have 4 miners upgraded for every starbase you have with a logistical matrix. On the right-hand side, we saw Nessie isn't really getting anything at all, but it's okay because his counterpart, Warp Core, is also not getting anything at all. So they're both, you're sort of seeing what happens when they don't feel threatened. The Borg player goes straight for logistical matrix, which it's rough because I don't think the logistical matrix gives you more income than he would have gotten from just expanding. But it is very safe income because those miners are incredibly hard to kill when they're next to your starbase. On the right-hand side, though, yeah, Nessie was just getting his engineering. He's already sending out that constructor. Wow, my narration is not going to match the video. I'm really sorry, guys. In the top left, Tiger went for a starbase first. He had no combat ships to support this. So this was going to be a Katinga rush. In Triptych's mod, all of the other races have the option to build a starbase with no weapons on it. But the Klingon one, it has weapons by default, and it's more expensive because you're paying the price of the starbase and of one upgrade. This was deliberate because otherwise it would be too easy to rush a starbase in the beginning. And this is just one of those things that as the designer, it's really hard for me to tune because I want this to be an option but not overpowered. As you can see, Drazon really didn't have anything available to fight it. He could have, in theory, if he had gone straight for a small yard and started getting bugs, but I believe he wanted to get a small yard at his expansion here, which, you know, you slow down a few seconds, you get your home mining first, and all of a sudden he's building this. But there was a bug who showed up to threaten this. And, oh, that's rough because the build time on that station is so long. And so, yeah, he has a second bug. You can see if he had gone straight for small yard, if Drazon had, he could have shut this down for sure. Spoiler alert, I've already seen the video, obviously. But yeah, this also results in a very interesting interaction. Yeah, you see Tiger popped some Katingas, but because the Dominion have the bug, which in Triptych's mod has higher defense than it did before, and it has that 80 AI, this makes it basically you can't use a starbase first Katinga rush against Dominion anymore because they have bugs, and because bugs counter your Katingas, and your Katingas are all you're going to have. You see, he's piling on the damage, but that bug is taking 30% reduced damage, and it's just so hard to chew through. But you can see the Klingons, they have a very rough economic start in the beginning, but the fact that they can pop their miners into Katingas really counteracts that, because even if it's difficult for them to get a Quebec out, they could have a Borel or two. Oh, I forgot to mention there's also corner maps. There were corner moons. So yeah, it's actually, they can always pop a couple Katingas as emergency defense or as raiding, so the Klingons are not in danger of being attacked early, in general. Yeah, over on the right, Nessie actually going for science. I believe he went for warpins relatively quickly, because once again, he doesn't feel threatened. He's even getting mining, and I think he's building a platform at the center of the map. Interestingly enough, this map actually has more resources for the wing players than it does for the center players, if you think about it, because some of the players have those corner dilithium and some have tritanium. And in older versions of fleet operations, obviously the dilithium moons in the top left and the bottom right would be a huge advantage, while the tritanium moons in the other corners are not useful at all. But in Triptych's mod, tritanium is absolutely needed for certain strategies, most late game things, support ships and upgrades. So it actually makes it very interesting because your top right and your bottom left player on this map will be encouraged to go for tech. So yes, Tiger did complete that starbase, which means he has a firm hold over this expansion, and he can start pumping out Katingas. I think, so in the newest version, 3.9D, I lowered the tritanium cost of the top May a little bit, I think. It's hard to remember. All I know is in this version, the tritanium cost is very high, and I remember that actually works against him in this game because the Katingas require a lot of tritanium compared to his other early game ships, and he happened to get the spawn location that has extra die. In the bottom, Starmaster Prodigy was going for an economy build, but he also got some S2s, and he was using those to harass Drone, who is a Risner Feds. Oh, that's right! He went and built a yard over here. And we had all these shenanigans. So yeah, you see Drone has gotten a platform up successfully. Starmaster Prodigy was not able to snipe that constructor, but he is in a very threatening location here. And he's even going for that mining yard to try to get some dilithium off of it. Because once he, like, Drone also didn't move very quickly into military ships. But he did get his chassis 1, and he is getting Monsoon Intrepid. So we'll see. It's, on the one hand, as long as Starmaster Prodigy has this forward expansion, he can repair a lot. And you could say that it's very difficult for Drone to go raid Mighty's expansion. But at the same time, if Mighty loses this star yard, he will have lost a big investment. and then his expansion will be vulnerable. So a lot of the game is going to hinge on this battle here. And you see Star Master Prodigy, he realizes, oh, that platform's too much. He's not going to be able to break that. So he's just going to go and check out if he can kill the corner, which was it was very unfortunate for Drone, because Drone decided to build a proxy yard over here. Although I think actually, I think Mighty actually, yeah, he isn't able to kill the constructor there, so he's just going to have to go home. And now there's a yard, and in that case, this actually becomes a pretty good thing for Drone, because he has successfully defended against his corner. He's defended his corner dilithium moon pretty effectively, and he's projecting power because he doesn't have the yard all the way back in the corner. In the middle, an assimilator comes out for Warp Core, and this was a, I want to say 2 regen, or 2 holding beam regen. Yeah, that's what that is. So full assimilate and regen, very tanky. He actually needs to keep aggressing, but it's very difficult with that repair yard and that platform right there. Platforms not having crew just means your assimilate build's really rough, and the big problem with assimilators is they are slow, which means he can't send them down to help Star Master Prodigy very quickly. Like, whatever you want to do with your assimilator, you have to decide like 2 minutes before you actually get to do it. You have to plan way ahead, and actually we see here Drazon deciding he's not going to be able to break that starbase. he's like, hey, what if I go support the bottom? And this becomes a problem, because these Katingas can come in here. They do get a bonus to killing freighters, but Drazon, he's like, you know what, I don't have to fight that. And he's like, the Klingons have spent so much on that starbase in the top that they don't have a lot to invest in the rest of the battle. So he's like, well, if I send my bugs down to a fight to assist that bottom fight, we can knock Star Master Prodigy out, because that expansion is such a vulnerable one. And unfortunately here, Tiger is not in a very good place to go support the bottom, because it's happening over on the right-hand side. So we see a place where Drazon is able to support the bottom, but Tiger is not. And also, Nessie did get to Warpins, which he was able to call in. So all of a sudden, there's 2 phaser platforms here. And every race has a response to turrets in Triptych's mod. I've tried doing things like, I gave the S2 the EM Blast special that reduces turret rate of fire by half. You know, and I've tried to make it so that every race has a way to deal with turrets. And when I came to the Federation, I was like, well, what do the Federation need to deal with turrets? And the answer was nothing, because the Federation answer to turrets is the Monsoon. The Monsoon taking half damage from long range, almost all turrets in the game being long range, and the fact that turrets are required to shoot at the closest target means that they can just park one Monsoon close to the enemy turrets, and it negates the damage of those turrets for a couple seconds. So the Federation don't need, I mean, they also have the Nova with Plasma Bolt that can disable weapons on a target, but in general, the Federation don't need a better answer to turrets, and they also have their own turrets, but the Federation Monsoon is the answer to turrets. And I believe in the top Tiger, I don't know if Tiger decloaked with his Katingas or if he's just roaming around. He checked the Tritanium Mine moon, but because Drazon was going for bugs, which are extremely dilithium heavy, Drazon never even got the Tri-Moon in the top right corner. He didn't feel like he needed it. I think there is an assimilator coming around, which could be helpful. Obviously, so Warp Core, because he went for that economy build, he'll have a really hard time getting ships out at first, because he has to build those medium Vulcans. But after he gets going, he'll have a lot of income. And that Intrepid, oh, that's tricky. All the physics going on here. Yeah, even though the S2s are faster, they have to move real fast to get that damage on it while it runs. These Intrepids are just, these are Risner Intrepids, so they have more offense. And they're just really, really good at these small skirmishes. The S2s have very high stats overall, but they're just really hard to skirmish with because they have the low defense. It's hard to get S2s back into the yard. And oh, it looks like an Intrepid did die there, and let's see if that assimilator is going to capture a bug. Yep, okay. One of Drazon's bugs has been captured. I don't know if they'll get that back for repair or not. And you see the assimilator still has lots of energy left. In Triptych's mod, the assimilators assimilate a bit slower, but they have quite a lot of energy, so they can keep on going for a long time. And now, okay, so now that they actually have dealt with this, they can come in and they're going to try to knock out this constructor before that third platform comes out, which is very important. Okay, the platform gets canceled, and I think they're going to kill it. So yeah, that assimilator providing some very powerful support from the left-hand team. Unfortunately, Warp Core is defenseless, but in the middle. But on the bright side, like Warp Core didn't, you know, because he didn't expand all of his minings at his home and he has a starbase, he's not in danger. Unfortunately, what's going on in the background here? Oh, by the way, Tiger is also destroying Drazon's mining with his Katingas. He did come through and kill some miners and cause a lot of economic damage to Drazon. And Drazon's bugs actually did go home because of that. He only lost a couple in this bottom fight. But yeah, what's going on now though is Nessie is expanding to the middle left, which is something that Warp Core did not anticipate. And that becomes a huge deal later on in this game. So yeah, up here we see the Katingas. I forget if he actually is going to go for that. Yeah, he has more though. He has a lot of Katingas coming out. And he's even building forward something there with his constructor. And you can see, yeah, there, he has quite a lot of extra die because of the tritanium cost on these freighters, or on these Katingas. And there they decloak, and they can, the thing is, they deal greatly increased damage to constructors, but the bugs showed up just in time. And unfortunately, Tiger waited too long with his attack. He wasn't able to launch it, and now the bugs have shown up with perfect timing to chase these all off. And even though there's more Katingas than bugs, the bugs are a very, very rough counter to them. And as long as those bugs are around here, there's not much the Katingas can do. Also, Tiger... Oh, okay, no, that's Drazon's resources. Drazon, okay, Tiger just bought supply, or no, he hasn't even used his starting supply. Drazon has to buy supply here. And it is a bit tricky, like, it is going to be hard for Drazon to set up an economy with those Katingas buzzing around. But you sort of get the feeling, well, there's a lot of different things going along at the same time. On the top, it's difficult for Drazon to mine. Oh, he does actually catch out a miner building another starbase. That one's going to get killed. Well, it's canceled, so no resources are lost, but that is shut down. That would have been bad if Drazon had stayed in the bottom the whole game. So yeah, we see the Katingas can cloak, so they can just sort of skirt around this, but they can't actually attack Drazon very effectively while his bugs are around. I guess, okay, he's probably killing miners. Yeah, the thing is, yeah, the Katingas, Tiger's Katingas, they can decloak and kill the constructors very quickly, or the miners, because of the Katingas, and then the bugs come in. So yeah, we just got a game of keep away, I guess. And we'll see that Drazon's economy has been decimated. There's very little of it left. But he's also keeping Tiger distracted. So right now, neither of them are really doing too much. And the Federation players are going, like they're working on their chassis upgrades and they're getting warp-ins. So they are just more efficient than the Dominion and Borg in this version. Now there are 3 assimilators. Oh, okay, and Star Master Prodigy and Warp Core have knocked out those 2 platforms. And they are coming. And yeah, there you see an errata yard right on Warp Core's expansion. He's not equipped to get rid of it. So 3 assimilators are going to assimilate pretty fast. But they move slowly, so you need to be moving forward. You need to be attacking with them all the time. In fact, in Triptych's mod, the vinculum is so expensive, but the assimilator itself is so cheap, it's perfectly okay for you to lose your assimilators in this scenario. You would rather go and fight and kill some enemy units and lose all 3 assimilators than you would not fight with them, because they're very cheap to rebuild once they're destroyed in Triptych's mod. That's just one of the features of the assimilator. The assimilator is extremely resource efficient if it dies and you rebuild it. Oh, you gonna board that? There's a monsoon drifting to the right. It's been 0 crewed, but nobody's boarding it. It's just there. You gotta transport onto it. It's tumbling. It's tumbled to the right of the battle. It's just there. I know the Borg have decrewed at least 2 ships. Oh, who got it? I didn't see. Oh, it was Drone. Drone recapped his Monsoon and got it into the repair yard. The repair yard, which is now dead. And then the Monsoon dies. So we see a lot of firepower. It's hard to tell what's been dying on the left-hand side. I guess a lot of S2s have died. They put some firepower on this assimilator. Okay, so honestly, the right-hand team have, I think, made a bad call to target the assimilator. Like, I just got done saying that the left-hand team don't mind if the assimilator dies. I mean, they like it to live, but it's also very tanky. The regenerate module and the assimilate avatar bonus means that is a big, solid chunk of hit points. So it looks like this battle has had some very bad targeting by the right-hand team. They wanted to deal with those assimilators, but they just couldn't chew through it. I think they are going to kill one if Warp Core isn't careful here. He's going to lose 1 out of 3 assimilators, but he can rebuild it so quickly. But the problem is, in the meantime, while all this has been going on, Nessie and Drone have been working on their chassis upgrades. I don't know if they have chassis 3 yet, but they will soon. And the moment they do, they get a lot more efficient because they can start pumping out some bigger stuff. Even though, if they want to get Phalanx, yeah, okay, there we go, Phalanx. The Phalanx will be countered by the S2s. Because the S2s will do a bonus damage to Phalanx. But it might not even matter because S2s are so low on defense and the Phalanx have the area of effect attack. And then there's Sovereigns and Defiance, both of which take reduced damage from short range. In fact, Defiance counter S2s very, very, very powerfully with their pulse weapons and the S2 taking increased damage from short. So these S2s are about to become very not effective. And there's a incubation chamber. I guess he sent his constructor forward so he could build uplinks in over there, and then he needed supply, so he built an incubation chamber. The assimilate avatar incubation chambers are actually effective defensive structures because they slowly assimilate nearby ships. If the enemy comes and attacks you with small ships like monsoons and they take too long to kill that incubation chamber, they'll start getting yellow crew on all of their ships. It does not have the same effect on Sovereigns and Phalanx, which have like 400 crew. But against small ships, they're effective. And here we see Drazon, I think, oh right, in the top, Drazon has actually given up and lost his expansion there. And he is just being ripped apart by these Katingas, just through sheer numbers, because Drazon was never able to reestablish his mining. And also, we established in this version the Dominion Constructor was a bit too expensive, and I made it cheaper in future versions. The Dominion have been really struggling with my changes. We've been considering them kind of weak and hard to use, and I've been slowly buffing them, trying to make them better, so that they can compete with the other races. But poor Drazon has random into them so many times. He has the most experience with how they're difficult to use. But now he's actually going to come around with some bugs and raid Tiger, it looks like. Just knock out a couple things. And you see Tiger actually having trouble spending all of his resources since he's going only Katingas. I think he really would have benefited from some bigger ships in this game. We saw him with 5,000 dilithium there, so he could be building more. And he got extensions on his field yard, so he can get like cavorts and quebecs. But really, we could see Sangs or Vorcha out of 1 or 2 yards with the way his economy goes. And there we see Nessie has also gotten chest level 3. One of the things about Triptychs mod is the Phalanx is no longer capped at 6. You can have as many as you want, as I've tried to eliminate as many ship caps as I could. Now, in this version, I accidentally made the Phalanx too cheap. Way too cheap, because I didn't account for the fact that it has AoE damage when I was doing my little math. So in the next version, in the current version that's out, 3.9D, the Phalanx is significantly more expensive to build. But in this version, they were very cheap and very strong. And yeah, once you get to them, everything else becomes dangerous. And there we see a bunch of mass boarding. So there, because Drone tried to board it, its shields went down, which allowed Star Master Prodigy to start boarding. Oh, but it's gotten away from the blue beams. And now I don't know if Star Master Prodigy actually has low crew on these S2s or not. I think they still have good crew, but over here we see, oh, some support troops from Nessie. And between Nessie and Drazon, these Katingas aren't going to cut it. And that Starbase ain't going to cut it either, because they can just fly Monsoons over there if they really want to, and the Monsoons will take half damage from the Starbase. And there is a Phalanx coming in with that AoE damage that's just going to rip apart a cloud of Katingas. I think at this point, Drazon isn't really building much more. Maybe he's trying to rebuild his economy, but he only really needs to mess with the bugs that he has. Ooh, a torpedo platform. Torpedo platforms are a very interesting thing, because in regular fleet ops they have artillery range. In Triptych's mod, I gave them sub-artillery, because I don't like the idea of a turret that can't be outranged by an artillery ship. Like, artillery ships should hard counter turrets. If the enemy has a row of torpedo turrets, you should be able to kill it without taking any damage with an artillery ship. That's just my idea of the philosophy. But even with its range being this little sub-artillery, it's still fantastic. And the reason is because it has an artillery range profile, which means it's not long range. Which means all of these ships like S2s that deal bonus damage to long range, they're dealing 50% bonus damage to that starbase right now because the starbase is long range. But they don't deal any bonus damage to the torpedo turret because it's artillery. Same with the Monsoon, it takes half damage from long range, but it doesn't take half damage from torpedo turrets. So the artillery range turrets in this game are, or the sub-artillery, is Dominion perimeters and Federation torpedo turrets. And even though I reduced their range slightly in Triptych's mod, the fact that they're not long range makes them super nice as turrets. Because there's almost nothing in the entire game that counters artillery, which is intentional. So I don't know how many Katingas Tiger decloaked with. It was a lot. You can see, okay, he's got more. I mean, obviously he's got a ton, but here Tiger, I think, is making a bad call trying to come home with his Katingas and defend, because he's not going to be able to defend his starbase from that. The bugs will tank his Katinga shots, and the Federation ships will just kill him off. So I think at this point, he should have just used those Katingas to keep on raiding, maybe go raid Nessie's home base. But we can see at the same time, the left-hand team have destroyed Drone's base. Drone has almost nothing left in this game. While the right-hand team are destroying Tiger's base. However, Tiger has a second star base, so it's not the worst. However, at the same time, I think the right-hand team are probably losing more because Drone had chassis level 3, which means he has spent a lot of money on technology. And some of that comes down to, you know, what a race loses if their stuff is destroyed. Like, Romulans, when I have them set up in the new system, all of their technology is in tech stations, which means if you destroy their technology stations, you blast them back to the Stone Age. But Federation have chassis levels, and that's where most of their stuff, most of their expense is. So if you blow away a Federation player who had made it to the late game, it's actually not that hard for them to rebuild, because all they have to do is get, you know, an Antares Yard or a Narada Yard, and they can still build chassis level 3 ships. It's cheaper for them. And there you see the Katingas, getting chased down by some Phalanx. And the thing is, Phalanx aren't super slow either. Actually, in 3.9D, I lowered their speed from 100 to 90 because that felt like they were too fast. But yeah, you see the left or the right-hand team just being merciless. Tiger's Katingas are getting annihilated. And Nessie's home base has died, but the funny thing is, he didn't build any of his tech structures there. And sometimes Fed players have been doing this because they just want to expand so much. So yeah, Starfleet Engineering, Starfleet Science, Starfleet Command, none of them were there. I think all it was like the Starbase, an Antares Yard, and some mining. Now he's going to lose a bunch, but he is turreting up the forward line. He is making a bastion that he can retreat to with an Narada Yard. And like I say, if he loses the other stuff, it doesn't matter. I don't think ships even require Starfleet Engineering. So if Starfleet Engineering dies, I think he can still build Phalanx. He is going to lose that Starfleet Command, which really hurts now that it costs 1,500 try. But yeah, he's got money. And interestingly enough, at this stage of the game, because I guess the right-hand team don't know that they killed all the Katingas for sure, but they killed all the Katingas. So Drazon can actually start expanding over on the right if he wants. It's safe for him to do that now. I don't remember if he actually did. But the Borg have come in. They have 4 assimilators. And they really should have a 5th by now. Oh, okay, he's building it. Oh, there's number 5. And he's getting an expansion matrix over there. So they're trying to steal these structures so that they can do some mining here maybe, but I think Nessie just decommissions them. Part of a Borg boarding strategy in the late game is they can unlock the boarding special, which just instantly transfers crew, and in Triptych's mod it's gotten a lot stronger, but in order to get that you have to get a transmission matrix. And that's how you can board suddenly so that the enemy doesn't get a chance to decommission their station. So, we see more Sovereigns and Phalanx. Sovereigns being command ships in Triptych's mod do give a rate of fire bonus to other ships. So you really want at least 1 Sovereign in this fleet. And yes, that rate of fire bonus does affect the Magnan AoE phaser as well. So they are coming up here. Ooh, Constructor. That might be Tiger's last Constructor. Getting caught out there by those bugs, which would lock him out of the ability to return. As for Drone, I don't know if Drone has a Constructor left. I think he might have lost it. In which case Drone cannot return either, come to think of it. I was talking about how he could rebuild earlier, but yeah, if he doesn't have a Constructor in the first place, he can't. And yeah, this Starbase, I don't think the Starbase was ever upgraded, so it just has the 1 attack, which is being comfortably tanked by the Monsoon up front. Let's see, over on the right, oh wow, Drazon gets knocked out really fast. I say all those S2s with their bonus damage to long range, they're station killers. And especially if you get ranks on them. Yep. So the veteran S2 has a passive that causes it to sometimes disable weapons on targets that have torpedo launchers. And every Starbase type when it's upgraded has torpedoes. So unless you get the ultimate Starbase that is immune to being disabled, S2s will be a very bad day for you if they get to high ranks, because they just come in and they disable your station weapons, and all of a sudden your super expensive station is a super expensive paperweight. So, Starbases that have died. We have now had 5 Starbase casualties this game. 3 on the right and 2 on the left, both belonging to Tiger. And but over here, Drazon's got some mining. He's probably handing his resources off to someone else at this point. Or maybe even considering sending his miners over to the left side of the map to avoid this nasty fleet. And so now let's talk about economy for a second. So the left-hand team, Warp Core hasn't done too much. I mean, he's got 5 assimilators, but he never expanded. But he probably has the 4 perfect logistics miners. So that's like, I need to check the exact numbers, but the perfect logistics comes out to a little bit less than a moon pair worth of mining. I think it's like 2/3 of a moon pair. So he's kind of on like 1 2/3 moons. Starmaster Prodigy, I don't know if he ever expanded his mining in the bottom right, but he's on at least 2 moon pairs. Oh, and he's got the bottom left Tritanium. So Starmaster Prodigy, he's on about 3 moon pairs. So, and then Tiger has been knocked out now, but we could see if Tiger has a bunch of resources saved up that he could give to his allies, because he did have like 5k and 3k try. On the right-hand side, Nessie's still mining there. So Nessie has 1.5 moon pairs. Oh, and Warp Core is actually expanding his mining in the bottom right. And Starmaster Prodigy is in the bottom right. So actually Starmaster Prodigy is exceeding 3 moon pairs now. So the right-hand team have it kind of rough, especially, and this hurts because Nessie has 2 dilithium and 1 tritanium moon, but his phalanx and sovereigns are very tritanium heavy, so that extra dilithium isn't going to help him. And here we see Warp Core. He has just been upgrading his starbase, but I think it's going to die. You've got a lot of stuff shooting at it. Oh yeah, here I was looking at what Drazon still has. The other problem is the right-hand team might run out of repair yards if they're not careful. They only have 2 repair yards left for their faction, and if those 2 repair yards die, they can't repair this fleet anymore. So, but the phalanx count is getting kind of high. And there is a sovereign giving them command now. So yeah, you see, even though it's upgrading, there's one ambassador with a special tanking all the Starbase fire. And it was about to make an ultimate Starbase. In fact, it does become an ultimate Starbase. Yay! And then it dies. The Borg Starbase has a passive that causes other Borg stations nearby to have torpedo weapons. So you can actually put a bunch of incubation chambers around and assimilate Starbase, and it'll get very tanky because each of them has 50 offense. So every one of your incubation chambers turns into a turret, basically. It's still not enough to really deal with a late game fleet, but between the auto assimilation of the incubation chambers and the torpedo damage, and the fact that you might have your own Borg ships there as well, a Borg base can get very tanky. So, oh yeah, I was looking and saying, Starmaster Prodigy still has not put a second miner on that mine, but he's got his supply mining, and he did go for large yards, and he's going for Breen battleships. And he actually has a cluster of them he hasn't used yet. So, Breen battleships, dealing bonus damage to battleships, bonus damage to medium range. So, and they are long range. So they kind of counter the phalanx, in that the phalanx have pulse weapons and AoE weapons, which are better against small ships, and then the Breen battleships, they do deal like 20% bonus damage to the phalanx, and obviously they have torpedo weapons on them as well, so it really depends on who can coordinate their fleets. Oh, okay, here we go. So they actually did not lose. Wait, why is oh, okay, so the left-hand team came in and boarded that, and Tiger took it over? I wonder why it was Tiger who got it. Well, that, yeah, the right-hand team have captured it back. They can use that to repair it. What is this? Oh, this is Drazon. Drazon sent his guys to build a starbase in the top left corner. That's very sneaky, but all Tiger had to do was pop some Katingas, and they deal bonus damage to small, so it's not going to go the same as... You know, at the beginning of the game, we saw the bugs trying to kill off the Klingon constructor while it was building a starbase, and that didn't work out. But the Katingas trying to kill Dominion, that will work out because they get the 50% bonus damage. And they started killing it a lot earlier in the process. So, now the Borg are being attacked. Oh, that's right, the perfect logistics miners that have still been around. So that's going to be gone. I wonder, Warp Core though, he still has all the vinculums, so I think he just needs a conduction matrix, and he can keep building. He didn't lose his constructor. He won't have income, which is sad, but he has a fair amount in the bank. Okay, he has 6,500 dilithium, so he could go for like... This is a bit of a tricky one for the Borg. Their resource differences aren't as extreme as the other races, but they still need a lot of tritanium, especially for the late game stuff. I mean, he could build some adapters or some scout cubes now, because those are very dilithium heavy. But I don't know if he has small vinculums. But actually, he does have the vinculums, so even if he loses a ship. So let's see, where are the fleets actually located? Oh, okay. Some bugs belonging to Drone. I wonder if Drazon handed some off to Drone. Oh yeah, he probably handed them off to Drone so Drone could control. Oh, this is bad for these bugs because the S2s move faster than them, so the S2s can chase them down and don't have to let them escape. Okay, but they're pulling back a bit because of the danger. Yeah, there's a big Fed fleet. And where are the assimilators? The assimilators have to be here for this fight. Are they... Oh, I think the... Oh yeah, there's Nessie building starbase. I think the assimilators are over on the right-hand side. And if those assimilators, yeah, if they don't fight along with the Breen battleships and the S2s together, they're gonna lose. Oh, and the S2 is getting caught out. This is bad. Oh, You did not want to feed your fleet to the right-hand team in bite-sized pieces. You're like, hey, would you like to take a single bite of my Dominion fleet? And Nessie says, why yes. Yes, I would. Oh, is that perimeter done? Oh, the perimeter coming up soon. Just now finishes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's already up. It's upgrading right now to get those AT charges. And there go the Breen battleships. Once again, the the Monsoon. Oh, I forgot to mention the Breen battleships also disable subsystems with their attacks, so that's nice. But yeah, the Breen battleships get some shots off and the Feds retreat, but I think they got all the S2s though. They got a lot of S2s there. And now it's a bit rough because he's building Breen battleships, which are tri-heavy, and both Tiger and Warp Core have all got lots of extra dilithium. So, and this is just how it is in the new version of Triptychs mod, is you don't have enough titanium to build only late game ships with your stuff. You just don't. So anybody who goes into late game ships like this, they're gonna have extra dilithium. At which point, the idea is you could just build 20 bugs, and they're not even going to cost you much because each bug only costs like 80 titanium, but around 300 dilithium. So the idea is that even in the late game, it's a good idea to mix small early game ships into your fleet. That's what I'm aiming for anyway. With the exception of the Katinga, because the Katinga is actually based on a miner. But I would love to see a whole bunch of S2s added to this fleet and bugs. I want to see bugs. Even though they will die. Yes, they will die at the beginning of combat. They won't even kill much. But you have so much extra dilithium, you don't even mind that much if they die. They're just free hit points to add to the fight. And obviously this is an advantage for Feds, because Feds have Monsoons, which are extremely tanky and extremely useful in late game fights, whereas some other ships, you could argue that the S2 is not that useful in a late game fight because it dies so fast. But actually the bug is 80 AI. There isn't too much medium range stuff on the right hand team, but you could get away with it. Other ships, the Borg have it a bit rough because, like I said, they scout cubes are not useful in a late game fight, but they can get adapters. And adapters are very dilithium heavy. Oh, I was just looking at this fantastic little Katinga here. I do love the fleet operations models and the cloak effects, even if they lag out our computers. But yeah, like Klingons can build Quebecs. I mean, yes, Quebecs die pretty fast late game, but they never stop being good. And if they're cheap, if it's all dilithium and you have extra dilithium anyway. Oh, right, I was saying Borg. For Borg can build adapters. And adapters, once you have the regeneration special, an adapter can just be a chunk of hit points for you. And it costs almost entirely dilithium. So if you have all this extra tri, might as well. So the left-hand team are organizing their fleets. They have a bunch of Breen battleships, a bunch of assimilators. Unfortunately, these assimilators, they have trouble engaging all at the same time. You can see like they don't stack up on each other too well. Some of them are very far behind the others. And when those phalanx start swarming, all the phalanxes pack super close together. And they're faster than the assimilators, so they can just run away and fire backwards on the assimilators. And the assimilators are so spread out, it's really hard for them. Breen battleships are also a relatively slow ship. Well, here they go, and oh, the Federation were not here. They went over to attack the base, so they got caught out, and this could be very good for the left-hand team. That's still a very ugly turret cluster to go into, but Nessie has got to be having some troubles with money at this point, right? So, and the left-hand team are still mining the bottom, so all they really need to do is cause a bit of economic damage and then leave, and they'll be fine. Yeah, going for these Arati yards because they're so expensive. And, oh, the Federation are coming back. It's almost all phalanx now because all the smaller stuff has died off. And he doesn't have an Antares yard, so he can't really build Monsoons anymore. And oh, and yeah, those turrets aren't so dangerous when the Borg ships are tanking them. Oh, yeah, I think the left-hand team have had this game for a while now. But it was just, in theory, maybe if the fight had happened at the turrets with the phalanx here, the right-hand team could have swept up. But then they would have had to kill the bottom stuff as well. So a really good game. I think we got to see a lot of things demonstrated in this game. The way that different ships interact with each other, the way that the Federation can turret up and get to their late game tech and how effective it is, and just the way that some of the early game counters work against each other, like the bugs and the Katingas. I think I actually keep on recording this for a while so that we can see this big fight after the players who don't really have ships have dropped out. So I'm just going to stop narrating now and let you guys watch the end of the battle. Hope you guys enjoyed. This is Triptych signing off.